Here I was doing a hub bearing on a 22, I think, Ram Promaster 1500, and only because one of the studs stripped out and it ruined the hub. So you kind of have to do hub and bearing, and it's for the front. So I'm gonna do a quick rundown. This is the part number I got, Dorman. No complaints about it. Comes with hub bearing and a new snap ring, which you kind of need a new snap ring because you might destroy it taking it out. But like I said, I'm just going to give a quick rundown of all the bolts that you have to remove. And then I'll leave a picture of all the torque specs at the end of the video if you need that too. But it's basically, you know, one of these knuckles that you just have to remove the whole thing. And then you have to press the bearing out. I try to do it with the tool, like that on-car tool, but I just couldn't do it. So first of all, the axle nut is a 46 millimeter. I used a 1 13/16 socket because that's all I had. Then the tie rod, I think that's a 21 millimeter. The ball joint bolt, that's a 24 millimeter. You kind of want to get the sway bar link nut too. That's a 19 millimeter. And then the nut and bolt that hold the knuckle to the strut. The bolt itself is an E20 Torx, so it's one of those inverted Torx. And then the nut for that is a 21 millimeter. The caliper itself, it's got two big bolts, which are 14 millimeter Allens. All right, and this is a quick picture of just all the bolts that I took off. The rotor is held in by two 12 millimeter studs. And then you want to loosen the control arm bolts, because when you want to take off the knuckle, you got to press down on the control arms, which is, I think, both of them are E24s. And then the top bolt for that left bolt bushing on the control arm, I think it's a 21, 22, maybe. And then you also want to remove the speed sensor. You got to pull back on this panel, which is just held in by like a 10 millimeter plastic nut. And then the whole sensor just comes out with the knuckle. And my sensor would not come out of the knuckle. It was stuck on there. So I had to press out the bearing with the sensor still on there. And it's possible, you just have to be very, very slow about it. I personally like to take out hubs with a slide hammer when they're press on, but on this one, any normal slide hammer won't fit because the bolts are too thick, so they won't fit in the holes of the slide hammer tool. So what I ended up having to do was finding another way to take out this hub. You can use a hub tamer too, but those are super expensive. Those are like $400. So I just used like a sawzall to cut these like two slots on the bearing to maybe like relieve the pressure of the hub to the bearing. And then once I did that, I was hitting up on the back of the hub with a hammer. Everything was just coming out slowly. The snap ring even started to come off on its own, kind of destroying it. So that's why you kind of want a new bearing with a new snap ring. Then once that came off, then I set up my bearing press tool. Like I said, after this is all up to you. This is how I set it up. I have my own Astro bearing pressing tool, and like I said, you can see the sensor is still right there, so you just have to be very careful about it. It just has a bunch of grease built up on it. And like I said, this isn't really a video on how to, you know, press out bearings. This is more a quick rundown. If you know how to press out bearings, this is pretty self-explanatory. More so a video for the Ram 1500 Promaster's front bearings, because there's no videos out there on how to do it. I think there was one video, but the guy just kind of replaced the entire knuckle. Okay, and then this snap ring, there's no real way to grab it. It's kind of weird. I put half of it, and then with a flat blade screwdriver, I was pressing on the back of it, and as soon as it got to this position where I could like hit it with a hammer, it just snapped in. So you might need like a second person. Just be careful not to like stab each other with a flathead screwdriver. But that's just kind of how I did it. All right, and I kind of just did it by myself. And everything just kind of went in smoothly. No big problems that I can think of. It just, like I said, it's just like any other press-on bearing. I kind of had to press it on, but I kind of messed up because when you're pressing it on, you want to make sure that when you're pressing on the hub, you want to support this inner race. And I was doing it by the outside of the knuckle when I was pressing it on. So when everything was put back together, the bearing was actually a little bit loose. But once I put it back on the car, and then I snugged up the axle nut, I didn't even get it tight. I just kind of snugged it up. The bearing was nice and tight. And like I said, I'll leave the torque specs at the end here. But the one thing I will say is the control arm at the bottom is really hard to put to put back on, and then make sure that the axle itself doesn't pop out of its socket. Those are the two big problems that I really ran into, but that's kind of any car with these press-on bearing types knuckles. And then once you've torqued your axle nut to spec, make sure that you do those divots on the axle nut to the axle face itself, where those spaces are. And then the one last thing I will say is I got two different torque specs on these two different websites. The first one, it says 110 foot-pounds and then plus 35 degrees. So that's kind of what I did. But on this other website, it says 350 foot-pounds. So I don't know if that's equal or that's the same. I didn't have one torque wrench that went up to 350 foot-pounds. So I just torqued it to 110 and then just went to 35 as much as I could. But that's the torque specs for the other things too, for like the ball joint, the control arms. And just don't forget to tighten up those control arm nuts that you had to loosen. So yeah, if you have any questions, just let me know and I'll try to help you out.